Okay, and I think we're live. Hi everyone, if you're new here, my name's Nicki, I'm an author and editor, and I post videos here on YouTube about writing, editing, reading, and all the other things I love, and it's the reading we're here for at the moment, because tomorrow is the end of the month, so I am wrapping up all the books I've been reading during March. Firstly, I'll apologise in advance. If you watched my film and TV stream just now, you'll know that I'm having trouble with my nose running and sneezing, dry throat, and as usual, I was perfectly fine when I got up. As soon as I start these streams, my nose starts running, my throat gets dry. I think I have some kind of allergy to live streaming because this happens every single time. That I'm perfectly fine before and after, but during the stream, I just need to sneeze or blow my nose all the time. So I apologise in advance if I need to duck away just for a second and grab a tissue or something, but hopefully we can get through. Let me get rid of this banner. Okay, so I have about, I think it's 12 or 13 books that I've read during March to share with you all. So I will waste no further time and we'll whiz through them. Quite a few are from NetGalley this month. I requested a few from NetGalley at the start of the year and didn't hear back, and requested a few more, and just recently I've suddenly been accepted for a ton of them all at once. So I've been on a bit of a NetGalley reading purge. I'm down to, fingers crossed, the last two at the moment, assuming I haven't got an email telling me I've got another one there that I haven't looked at yet. But I'm just about caught up now anyway. So I was glad to move that pile down a little bit. The first few I'm going to talk about are all NetGalley. So I think it's easier for this stream just to assume I got everything as a free review copy from NetGalley, unless I tell you otherwise. So the first book I read is All the Murmuring Bones by A.G. Slater. This was a 4.5-star read for me. This is a fantasy gothic story. As such, there's a bit of a mystery involved, so I don't want to reveal too much, but it involves a young woman who has a legacy whereby the family have prospered as long as they've given a child in each generation to the sea. It involves mermaids, I can tell you. But this hasn't been done for a little while due to a limited number of children available. The birth rates dropped in the family, and with that, their riches have started to decline as well. And so the young woman must kind of get to the bottom of this mystery and avoid an unwanted marriage and various things along the way. This was a really great piece. It was an atmospheric story. I thought the gothic elements came across really well. At times I would have liked a tiny bit more on some of the fantasy elements in terms of description and things, but that's fairly minor complaint, really. As I said, it was a 4.5-star read for me. So if you like gothic stories with a bit of a fantasy twist, then I definitely recommend All the Murmuring Bones. The next book I read was Dawn's Light by Shannon Blair. Now, this is a gay romance fantasy story, and it's set in kind of a fairy, fae world. And one of the characters was banished, or semi-banished, let's call it, when a coup took out the leader who he served. And he now works kind of almost as a bit of a, not a mercenary because he still works for the crown, but he just gets sent on all the rubbish missions, the assassination and various things. But one day he's sent to protect the prince of another realm, who his current queen wishes to give back to the father in a political move. However, along the way, he discovers things are not quite as he thought. And he also finds himself drawn to one of the prince's companions. I won't say too much more than that because I don't want to spoiler it. This was a 3-star, was it 3-star? Yes, a 3-star read for me. I really enjoyed the story premise, and I didn't dislike the characters, but I thought the romance when it came along felt a little bit out of nowhere. I would have liked to have seen it built up a little bit more. And just some of the pacing here and there was a little bit slow. So if you like fantasy, then it's worth checking out, but it just wasn't an absolute favourite for me. The next book I read was also a 3-star read. This is The Cursed Village. Can't even speak today. Village. By Harripersad Samaroo. Sorry if I pronounced that badly. He's an author from Trinidad. This book is set in Trinidad, and it's kind of almost a bit of a mystery, but really it's kind of a character study of the people in this village and this young man's life growing up there. So it goes into quite a lot about the Trinidad culture in these small villages, some of the folklore and folk beliefs. That part of it I found really fascinating. I pretty much knew nothing about Trinidad and Tobago apart from where it's located. So I really enjoyed reading and getting to know a bit more about the culture there and some of these myths and folk tales and things. I liked that, but I just found the book in other ways a little bit of a slog, partly from some of the phonetic rendering of the dialogue. I can understand he wanted to get the accent across, but it just felt overdone at times. And especially when it was so dense that they had to put explanations in brackets for what the word was in English. And there was a glossary, but it was at the back. I think if that had been moved to the front, so you could have just skimmed through that first. And if they'd just dialed back a little bit on the phonetics, keep enough to give the sense of the accent, but just bring it down a level, that would have helped. So as I said, it was a 3-star read for me for the interest factor of learning more about Trinidadian culture. But the book as a book and as a story just didn't quite work for me. The next one I read was Bloodlaced by Courtney Maguire. And this one was a 4-star read for me. This is a vampire story, but it's set in Japan in a Japanese style vampire yokai environment. This one I gave 4 stars because I thought the story was interesting. It featured LGBT rep among the characters, and I thought the characters came across reasonably well. The pacing was a tiny bit slow at first, but then it picked up. And if you like vampire stories and are looking for one with a bit of a twist away from the usual Western style vampire story, then definitely give Bloodlaced a try. Next up, I read The Tangleroot Palace by Marjorie Liu. And this one was a 3-star read for me. This is a collection of short stories, kind of fairy tale-esque stories. And some of the stories I enjoyed, but some of them just fell a bit flat for me. Sorry, my nose is now itchy as well. It's always when I come on these streams and I feel like I need to blow my nose as well. So let me just get this out of the way. Apologies, I'm back. Okay, so all these stories feature female leads, essentially, often strong female leads, whether for good or evil. The issue I had with it is that although I liked 1 or 2 of the stories, I found the others just a little bit lackluster, so kind of just was flicking through them. It didn't grab me as much as I would have liked. So if you're really into sort of modern new fairy tales, then it's worth having a look at. And you'll probably find a few of the stories you enjoy. But just for me, the collection as a whole was 3 stars, even though a few of the stories came across as 4 stars. Next up, we have Among Thieves by MJ Kuhn. This was, again, a 4-star read for me. So Among Thieves is a fantasy heist tale, let's call it. If you think Six of Crows, it's very similar in style, because we have a group of very different individuals who are brought together just for the purpose of conducting this one job. And there's various betrayal and machinations along the way. So I won't say too much more than that because I don't want to spoil it. But if you enjoyed Six of Crows, essentially you will like the story as well. It's very similar style, similar idea. But it had enough of its own vibe not to feel like a carbon copy of Six of Crows, I should say. So don't think that you're just going to come into it and read Six of Crows again. It is a very similar vibe and idea, but it has a fresh approach and some different ideas. The next book I read was Infinity Reaper by Adam Silvera. So this is the follow-up to Infinity Sun. There's going to be one more book, I believe, in this trilogy. So it's a YA LGBT superhero, essentially, fantasy style story. For me, book 2 worked marginally better than book 1. I think book 1, some of the world building was a bit lacking, and that wasn't quite so much of a problem in book 2 because we'd already got all that background in book 1. I kind of find the characters a little bit annoying, some of them. I mean, our main character, the Infinity Son of the first book, is just a bit too perfect at times, and I found it hard to get behind him because I was just like, I just wanted to slap him a few times. He's just too righteous a bit at times. And then his brother, who is looking to become a little bit of an antagonist, he is super annoying in his own way. He's a complete narcissist, so self-absorbed, but at least he came across as an interesting character, partly because of that. And he felt a little bit more well-rounded and better developed than some of the other characters. This one I gave 3.5 stars. I thought it was a slight improvement on the first book. It had some good moments. The action scenes are fairly well described. You can kind of picture them in your mind in a cinema style way. You can imagine them playing out on the screen. But there's just something that doesn't quite hit all the points on this one for me. The next one I read was Dark One Volume 1. This is a graphic novel with the story by Brendan Sanderson, and the two main artists, I think, are Lanzing and Kelly. This one was a 4 stars for me. I don't love the illustration style. It's one of those where at times the figures kind of look a bit warped when they're at weird angles and things. However, the story was interesting, which is why it got 4 stars. And the basic premise of this one is there's a young man who's suddenly stuff starts happening to him that he can't explain. And he discovers that he gets sucked into this other world, and he discovers that he is the one who's been prophesied to become the evil incarnate who the others must destroy. He doesn't choose to be evil. He doesn't really want to accept this destiny, but he's told he's basically got no choice. And I liked that it came from the different angle, because usually the chosen one is the good guy, and we see their story of rising up to defeat evil. So I quite liked the idea of turning that on its head and showing this guy who's a reluctant villain rather than a reluctant hero. And definitely I would be interested to read on and see what happens next in the story. The next book I read, we're going away from NetGalley. I got this one as an ARC from Pan Macmillan, Australia, as a hard copy, print copy. And it's the 16/8 Intermittent Fasting Lifestyle Plan by Jaime Rose Chambers. I requested this one because my sister-in-law was trying intermittent fasting late last year and mentioned it to me, and I did start to give it a try, but then over Christmas it kind of faded off. But I'm trying to get back into it, so I thought, well, it's handy to have a read of this book. This was a 4.5 star read for me. I think it's a really nicely presented book. It covers the science behind intermittent fasting. It looks at the different ways you can do it. It also suggests the ways of doing it that might suit different lifestyles, whether you're kind of a young professional or a mother with young kids. how you can make it work for you. And it ends with some recipe ideas and bits and pieces as well. It's a nice book. It's well presented. The layout's good. The information's clear and easy to follow. So if you're interested in giving intermittent fasting a go, it's a good book to pick up. The next book I read was a library borrow, which is Hotel Iris by Ogawa Yoko. I've been on the waiting list for this one for a little while, so I finally got to pick it up. This one was a 4-star read for me, and I'm really sorry, my nose is off again. I tell you, this only happens during these streams. The second I finish live streaming, it will be fine again. It's just one of those like things that just the world hates me when I live stream, apparently, or my body hates me when I live stream. So where was I? Hotel Iris. So in this book, we have a young woman. She works at a hotel run by her mother, or a guest house, boarding house. And one of the guests one day is this older man, middle-aged, older, or past middle-aged. They call him middle-aged at first, but actually later we discover he's about 60-ish, who is having an argy-bargy with a prostitute that he brought to his room in the corridor. And yet she finds herself really fascinated by him. And so when she comes across him again, they end up talking. And she ends up getting into this relationship, first friendly, then sexual with him, despite the big age gap. I feel like I'm going to sneeze now as well. It's just a complete nightmare. Okay. There's a kind of a slight BDSM element to this. And the reason this book got 4 stars for me was because I don't think that was well presented. This happens a lot when BDSM's in books. It kind of shines a quite poor light on BDSM because it's people that are not practicing it properly, safely, perhaps is the better way of saying it. So that was kind of a factor for me in dropping it down a bit. But in all other respects, I found this a really brilliant read. The characters come across well. I was engaged with their story and the sort of psychology of what was going on with them. And the prose is nice, easy reading as usual for Ogawa's work. So, my nose is just a pain. I'm really sorry, everyone, just to sniff and snuffle all through this, but I'm not actually ill. I promise. I'm just live streaming, and this is what happens as soon as I turn the camera on. So the next book, we're nearly done anyway. We've got 3 to go. The next book I read was Home of the Floating Lily by Silmy Abdullah, and we're back to NetGalley now for these final 3, I should say, for the month. And this is a collection of short stories about women who have left Bangladesh and emigrated to Canada, and or the other way around. There was a bit of a mix in the tales. And it's looking at both settling in to a new place and their relationships and how immigration might affect their relationships. This was a 4-star read for me. I thought it was a really great collection of stories. Despite the short page count, all the characters came across really well in them. They were nicely paced, felt complete, and very thought-provoking pieces. So if you like short stories with a focus on character, then it's worth checking out Home of Floating Lily. The next book I read was At the End of the Matinee by Hirano Keiichiro. I'm going to say this correctly. Hirano Keiichiro. And this is a book that focuses on a musician. He's a classical guitarist. And he meets a woman with whom he falls in love fairly promptly. But through various twists of fate, they keep getting pulled apart. Again, it's a very character-driven story. I really like the way the music and his life as a performer is woven through it as well. And this was a 5-star read for me. Wonderful characters, brilliant prose. I mean, obviously a very excellent translation. It flowed beautifully. And the piece was just interesting from start to finish, nicely paced, a lot of thoughtful ideas and themes running through it. So a really great piece of contemporary Japanese literature. So if you like, character-driven, thoughtful contemporary lit, this is one to check out. And we've made it finally, but I'm going to have to get my tissue. I'm really sorry. Okay, the final book, hopefully before I need to blow my nose again, was The Mad Woman's Ball by Victoria Mass. I finished this one just last night. In fact, I've got to put the review up on my blog in a moment. This one was a 4-star read for me. This is a book set in Salpêtrière, the madhouse in Paris, hospital, mental health hospital in Paris, and a young woman who can see dead people confides her secret to her grandmother, who she thinks she can trust, but the grandmother betrays her and she is sent off to this hospital. She's actually not mad. She actually does see spirits. And in the hospital, she meets the matron, the senior nurse, who doesn't believe in God, in spirits or anything, until a series of events make her question that stance and feel that she can believe this woman and wants to help her to get out from this place. So that's the basic premise. It's a fairly short book. It was a couple of 100 pages long. And I thought it worked well. It was a really swift read. And as I said, I read it in 2 nights. And the prose flows really brilliantly. I could really just zoom through the pages. I liked the characters. I liked the story. In some ways, I kind of felt like I wanted it to be a bit longer, but maybe that's just me. I think it probably is about the right length for the story it tells. It raises a lot of questions about the role of women in a patriarchal society, I guess. There's kind of it feels like there's a bit of a feminist slant to it, but not overdone that it blocks out everything else in the story. So if you like historical fiction that has a bit of a message and a theme running through it, then check out The Mad Woman's Ball. So that brings me to the end of my March reads. As I said, I've got a couple more to get through for NetGalley to catch up. So I'm reading those next. I also won a couple of books. I entered a summer reading challenge at my local library and I won. So I received a prize pack with a journal and pens and chocolates and 2 books. One of them was The Dictionary of Lost Words by Pip Williams. The other, Ash Mountain by Helen Fitzgerald. So I am hoping to read those soon too, once I've kind of cleared my NetGalley pile. And I still have about something like 25 books that I received from birthday and Christmas back in December that I have to read, or that I bought with birthday money, gift money after Christmas. So plus the Leigh Bardugo new book is out. I think it comes out today, so I'm going to go look for it in the bookstore tomorrow. So I will want to read that one pretty pronto too, to have fun with the darling again. So that's my wrap up for March. I'll be back again at the end of April to talk about what books I've read then. Oh, maybe before I go, as it's the end of the quarter, I should give you a brief update on some of my challenges and things. So with my World Reading Challenge, this first quarter I've crossed 3 more countries off the list. Trinidad, obviously, and Bangladesh with the ones I mentioned this month. And previously I did Ghana in January. So I've still got quite a few countries to get through, but I am slowly crossing them off. In terms of my Goodreads challenge, I'm at 45 out of 180 books for the year. So pretty much I'm on track with that. Not as far ahead as I'd like to be, but I've read a couple of longer ones that have slowed me down. So I do hope to whiz through a few more shorter ones in the next few months and get a bit further ahead with it. And finally, with my own challenge, the Njm Book Challenge 2021, I have 25 categories in this challenge, and let me count. I've read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So 16 out of 25, so I've only got 9 to go. So that's a good start. So hopefully I can cross a few more off in the next month or 2 as well. So on that note, I will wrap up and finish. I'll be back again for another one of these streams at the end of April. There'll be my usual one for film and TV and one for books. I do have a couple of other vlogs that will post that are already pre-scheduled during April as well, so I hope you'll check those out too. I will close there. I will see you all again very soon, I hope, with another stream. Bye for now, everyone.